Yay! Hello, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In my case, it's good morning because I live in an Asian time zone and it's currently 5 in the morning for me. So, yay! I'll have pandesal for breakfast after this. Yeah. By the way, fair warning. So, I'll not be able to see the chat while I'm presenting the slides. So, I am currently monitoring it using another account on another tablet. But just in case if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the chat and me and the host aide would do our best to take note of that during the Q&A later. All right? Oh, how cute. Let's see. I think we can proceed. Yeah, I see a lot of people joining. Hello, guys. Nice meeting you all there. So, how should I start? Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Mickey, and for today, I will be presenting my panel called Pinoy BL What Happened Since Game Boys. I'm not sure if some of you knew me ever since the days of Fujocon. So the first version of this panel called Introduction to Pinoy BL, I presented that during Fujocon 2021, 5 years ago. Um, just to spill, I actually had no plans to present the panel this year, but there was a big news that happened some months ago, and then at the last minute, I submitted this. You'll know about that later once we go into the latter part of the panel. Yeah, yeah. So there. Um, just to set everyone's expectations, no. This panel would be a bit of more of an update about Pinoy BL as a genre ever since the rise of Pinoy BL web series during the pandemic 5 years ago. I still inserted a few slides just to give everyone a refresher, especially those who are very new to the genre, like they haven't watched a web series or they haven't read a Pinoy BL novel or comics, just to set expectations what makes Pinoy BL different as a genre. And then later on, the rest of the panels will be more of updates, or as I mentioned in the chat, I will be spilling some tea, especially about the big events that shaped the genre during the preceding years. Yeah, and then I will be closing the panel with some of the nice stuff that has happened. Like there are certain innovations that happened during the last 5 years, which is actually a good thing, and what could be the future of Pinoy BL there. So just to give you my professional background, I'm actually a novelist, so I'm currently working on my fourth novel. Um, as I mentioned a few moments ago, no, so the first version of this panel was presented at FujiCon 2021. Yeah, so I'm mainly into novels, though only one of my novels are available in full in English. So if you're interested, it's actually posted on my AO3 for free. Yeah, you don't have to pay me a single cent. Yeah, I'll be happy to give you the link if anyone's interested there. So without further ado, I think we can start. Let's start with some refreshers first. No, um, so let's define first what is Pinoy BL. This is the part of the slide that I always have difficulty defining because it's unlike, for example, Danme or Thai BL, where it's predominantly defined by language. Pinoy BL is not really defined by language, so you can have Pinoy BLs in English, Pinoy BLs in Filipino, and it's still PL. So I would rather define it as any queer work made by Filipinos that primarily features male ex male romantic pairing. So it's either written in English, Filipino, or any Philippine regional language. Uh, it is primarily created in the Philippines. That's why we call it Pinoy. No? So Pinoy is a slang for a Filipino person. And it may be in novel, comic, or audio-video form, or more popularly known as a web series. There. Um, how do we differentiate Pinoy BL from other kinds of BL then? Um, let's start first with the what I call the muddy foundations of the genre. No, so it's not like Pinoy BL only started 5 years ago during the Game Boy fad. Pinoy BL in some form or another has existed decades before the term BL became a thing. It's either an indie soft porn or highbrow literature. And then in a parallel world, especially in the early 2010s, there was a genre in Wattpad called BXB. Um, it's catering to a mass audience, especially since the preferred language in Wattpad is Filipino instead of English. There's also some queer comic artists, but there's no large publishing scene. And then we got the after that, during the pandemic, we got the rise of web series during Game Boys, Hello Strangers, etc. Though even today, not everyone in the community would rather use the term BL. Sometimes it could be philosophical or political reasons. So sometimes they would define it, would rather call it as a queer work or an MXM work or a male X male novel, etc. etc. There. Yeah. So one of the defining features of Pinoy BL is its peculiar audience. So I always emphasize the history of the Philippines as a country because it's a big factor in why Pinoy BL, especially for those of you who are familiar with web series, people would say that Pinoy BL is unashamedly political. Uh, the country is super majority Christian, so 90% are either a Catholic or evangelical or quote unquote a born again Christian. I would always describe the Philippines as a Latin American society in the middle of Southeast Asia. So, like the behaviors, the beliefs, the practices would mirror much closer to, let's say, Mexico or a Latin American country than, let's say, China, Japan, or Korea. Um, the country was colonized for more than 350 years. First, it was a Spanish, then there was a British invasion, and then later on, the Americans came. And then later on, after the war, after the Japanese invaded the country, we got our independence. But shortly after that, there was a dictator, and we were in a state of martial law for more than 30 years. So the Philippines as a country is pretty much still a very young democracy. Probably we only got like the feel of a legit democracy for like 40 years or so. Yeah. So because of these influences, um, Philippine society tends to be very conservative but also very hypocritical. And I would add as well that because of the American influence, no, because of the American occupation, Filipinos tend to have high English proficiency and also high affinity with American Western culture. Like people would rather buy American brands than local ones. They would rather watch Netflix than a local show, etc., etc. Also, the Philippines being in Southeast Asia, no, Southeast Asia is a rapidly growing region, and the Philippines is rapidly becoming urbanizing. So people are getting more educated, people are getting more aware about beliefs from other countries. People are becoming more cosmopolitan as they get exposed to international beliefs, I would say. There. So I would highlight the three main formats of Pinoy BL. So the three main formats are novels, as you can see here. We also have a comic scene, no, but compared to the novels and the web series, it's a bit more on the underground side. Like you don't really see them a lot on the bookstores till recently. And then lastly, what gave Pinoy BL its name are the web series and movies format. So these are the Game Boys, the Hello Stranger, the past 5 years or so. There. So now here are some characteristics that makes Pinoy BL stand out. No, probably some of them I would agree. Some of them are impressions that I got reading comments from fan groups. For example, Pinoy BL being content created primarily by LGBT people, the heavy religious influence due to the Catholic Church, diverse characters, no. So there, it's not unusual for these series to have characters that are bi, that are lesbian, trans, non-binary people, and probably one key characteristic as well is that in most of these stories, women are often portrayed as allies and best friends, unlike some would say, no, like in Thai or Japanese BL, where the women were are just written off or either written as a rival in the relationship. Um, and also socially relevant plots, like the producers of these shows are not afraid to talk about sensitive topics like homophobia, discrimination, HIV, coming out, etc., etc. So the probably the main motivating factor why they produce these are not really money, but more on their deep advocacy. There. So that's our quick refresher about Pinoy BL, no? So we still have a few more parts of the slides, but if you have any questions later, please let us know so that I can answer it for you. But for now, we'll be focusing on the main gist of the panel, which is giving everyone an update about Pinoy BL. So for those who already know about the tea or maybe know about the shows I'll be talking about, please don't hesitate to talk about it in the panel chat so everyone is also aware and can join the discussion. Okay, there. So before we start, I'd like to ask if anyone's familiar with the guy on the right that I'm showing here on part 2 of the slide. Okay, you're not. Sorry, I had to sip a bit of coffee. No, hindi. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing that you don't know who this guy is. Yeah, no. Okay, good, good. So, I'm gonna start by spilling some tea. Who is this person? Um, it, Probably I should have asked if any one of you is familiar with the web series Gaya sa Pelikula or like in the movies instead. I think that's a better question to ask instead of asking who is this person. No? So the person on the previous slide is his name is Juan Miguel Severo. So Juan Miguel Severo is actually the creator of the series Gaya sa Pelikula. Shortly after I presented my panel in 2021, he was involved in a sexual harassment scandal. And what made it so awful and so worse is that the one accusing him of sexual assault is his own actor named Paulo Pangilinan. So, like, imagine all of us are celebrating the series. Every one of us is watching it, like, giving revenue to him in the studio, and we don't know that there's actually some awful things that already happened during the production of the show. So there, it's a really sad event that happened so immediately after my first panel. No, I just realized. Um, and what's worse is that Paolo Pangilinan is not just the only victim of the sexual harassment. Like other people also came out to reveal their stories. So the the bad thing about this news is that Juan Miguel Severo did not face accountability in the eyes of the law. Like he was not arrested, he did not get a case. He just went offline, silent right after. So he just went offline, deleted his social media accounts, stopped talking to people, stopped showing on TV. But he still has not faced the wrath of justice. But at least he was effectively kicked out of the Philippine entertainment industry, no? Like there are some attempts for him to come back, especially in what we call the spoken word poetry scene, but he still hasn't come back. Like people still has the scandal fresh in their brains, and they still kick him out. There. So The effects of that downfall is that if you're wondering, especially for those who has watched Gaya sa pelikula, no, since Juan Miguel Severo is the owner of the IP, the potential second season of Gaya sa pelikula was canceled. So since Severo owns the IP, it's not possible for a new series to be made without his involvement, right? And the rest of the remaining staff decided, okay, we'll just move on and then we'll just pursue other projects. So that would be another show I'll be talking about in a bit. Um, so the director of Gaya sa Pelikula, JP Habak, a few years after the cancellation of Gaya sa Pelikula, he made a new series called Marahuyo Project in 2024. So I'm not sure if any one of you has heard about Marahuyo Project. It's a really good show, by the way. There. So I've seen people in the chat asking what happened to the actor who suffered the sexual harassment. Paolo Pangilinan is now a licensed doctor. He's doing public service work, no? So he sometimes appears on TV. Sometimes talks about his advocacy, especially, for example, sexually transmitted disease. He's a research person on TV these days. There. And then the other main lead, no, Ian Pangilinan. I mean, same surname, but they're not really related, these two. Ian Pangilinan is back into theater, so he's doing theater work. He's sometimes into movies, and then he won a film production grant last year. So he's currently working on his directorial debut. There. So at least the actors has survived the ordeal and they still got careers or a new life outside of Gaya sa Pelikula, no? But it's tragic that they had to suffer like that there. So I have another set of tea to share, no? So you might be wondering, no, where are the actors and the staff that became part of Pinoy BL Productions, especially during the pandemic, no? Like this hot guy posing his starstruck, no? I'll be brutally frank here. Most of these people only starred in these projects because they need money, because it's the pandemic, right? Because it's the pandemic, they cannot shoot the regular movies and TV shows. So they have no money, they have no projects, and they cannot really choosy in what they can do. But once things have normalized, no, once vaccines have rolled out and they can do tapings outside again, the BL actors are being paired with women actors again. Some of these actors are not really popular in the first place, no? Like they may be popular with us because we have seen their shows, but in the real showbiz industry, the real entertainment industry in the Philippines, they don't really have a lot of clout. And the local audiences who were not really watching their shows anyways, I mean, they're not really contributing to the success of the actors in the first place. There. So I got here a few actors and staff who starred or directed Pinoy BL series, no. I'll highlight Elijah Canlas. So Elijah Canlas is one of the two guys who was on the first slide, no. If anyone of you is familiar with Game Boys. Elijah is back making movies, like independent team films. He also won acting awards overseas, but most of the time these movies are not queer movies, like the typical heterosexual movies. He actually has a new movie coming up this year where he's going to be, I think, like a martial law activist. Yeah. The other guy here, Jerome Ponce, he starred in BL series during the pandemic, but now he's back doing the typical boy girl stories. No, the Wattpad adaptations that he starred into is really popular, so it's more lucrative for him. And then we got here Daryl Yap, one of the first Pinoy BL directors. No, he's one of the most disappointing cases because he's now producing political propaganda for a senator, no. So I wouldn't name the senator anymore because it's not really relevant for this specific panel. I mean, the locals here would know who I'm talking about. But yeah, he's a disappointment. Um, there. Let's just move on to the next slide. There. But the good news is that even with these guys being a disappointment, there's still a bunch of other guys that's still persevering, right? Especially for those who are avid web series watchers, they would know the production house Oxin Films. So they're one of those that's still regularly producing BL projects to this day. And then sometimes we get directors, in between making more lucrative projects, they do BL projects on the side, just really like their passion project, yeah. And major production houses and financiers would still sponsor these shows once in a while, but not as much as it did during the first 2 years of the pandemic, that you can have as much as 100 productions or TV shows going on. So it's not much anymore, but some of them are still loyal. Probably, I mean, for business reasons, they need to be more choosy, right? They need to make sure that their investment would be worth it. So they get more selective in sponsoring these things now. There. So for the next part, we'll be moving on from web series to comics. Um, for the comics side, no, I see in the chat that people are sharing that you can find Pinoy BL web series on on Webtoon or Tapas, for example, no. But prior to these two platforms, the most popular one is a platform called PenLab. Um, PenLab is home to a lot of popular series like Life in Orange, My Crosswise Boyfriend, Somewhere in My Past. Someone recommended it in the chat. Thank you. It's a really good one. Um, PenLab is backed by a tech startup and art fair organizers. No, so it's a really big business. But it shut down in 2023 just when the pandemic was about to subside. And then shortly after that, the owner of PenLab was exposed in the internet due to their abusive labor practices. No, I wouldn't detail it because it's so much tea and it's just 5:23 a.m. I don't want to have tea for breakfast. It's not my thing. But you can just search it online. Yeah, especially for the locals, just search it. What I am talking about. So what happened is that, of course, the owner has abusive labor practices was canceled, and art communities kicked him out. And then the platforms were abandoned. They were kind of floating around for a while. They moved to other platforms like Webtoon, or some of them had print runs. Like My Crosswise Boyfriend and Somewhere in My Past, you can buy it in print in the Philippines. I've seen that some of them are into new platforms, like new local ones, aside from Webtoon and Tapas. But none of these platforms haven't gained any traction yet compared to the popularity of PenLab 5 years ago. There. And then we'll move on to the novels part, no? I don't want to use the word enshittification, but that's the best word to describe what happened to Wattpad during the last 5 years. Um, Wattpad was acquired by the Korean company Naver, and then after the acquisition, Naver's new management heavily restricted free and online reading. So unlike before, no, like Wattpad is the default place. If you want to read a Filipino novel, you go to Wattpad and you can have you can binge as many novels as you want. But now they have ads and coins. So it's so annoying, no? It's like, what's the difference between Wattpad and like the popular webtoon sites? Then I still need to have watch ads and paper coins. Um, the worst part of this deal is that authors, even if they still continue posting things on Wattpad, they do not earn from the ads or the coins unless they're specifically invited to join an exclusive monetization group called Wattpad Exclusives. So even if I post my manuscript on Wattpad, I wouldn't earn a single cent, even if my readers are watching ads to read it. It sucks, right? It's unfair. Also, there's reports of stories being deleted now, so there's some freedom of expression problems. Like even the Philippines is not spared by international culture wars, so there are reports of stories being deleted for due to sensitive content, such as incest, or there's like description or depiction of rape, underage characters, etc. There. So some of these stories you cannot really find them on Wattpad anymore. The authors have not returned to Wattpad, and instead they would post it on alternative platforms like Telegram, if you're familiar with it, the chat app called Telegram. There. But then there is still good news, no? Like I mean, just like part two, there's still some good news, like some light shining. For example, as I've mentioned, no, some of the popular web series have aired on national TV networks, but often on late night time slots. Um, the prominent TV production houses such as ABS-CBN and Regal, they still invest in these shows, but oftentimes they're streaming exclusive. So I will be streaming one of these later, called Love at First Spike. So I'll be streaming that later. Um, while these shows are still rare on TV, no, it's not unusual for queer characters to be part of the telenovelas and the soap operas. Like there would be at least one or two couples showing up. So that's progress. And what's good about these new shows is that the way they write their queer characters, no, they ditch old school stereotypes and storylines. So you don't have the typical stereotypical um, gay person who's working at a parlor or a lesbian security guard, etc. There. And also, I would like to highlight, no, some of the big successes in the film festival scene. Um, there was a movie called "The Boy Foretold by the Stars," who won one of the Philippines' most prestigious. I will. I'm not sure if I can call it prestigious. No, the locals would know what I mean. Probably the one of the most well-known film festivals called Metro Manila Film Festival. It was so successful that it actually got a sequel. Uh, though it even if the film was wildly successful, no, it did not really start like a new wave of these movies. So the Pinoy BL movies still return to underground after that. So you don't really see a lot of these movies back in the big screen yet. Probably you would see them on Netflix, for example, or Amazon Prime, or a film festival in the United States or in Europe. But there's still a rarity in local cinema. There. On the other hand, like while these films are not usually seen on the big screen, no, they are a staple in local streaming apps. There's a local streaming app called Viva Max, no, that is pretty infamous for producing erotic films. But it's typically the boy girl soft porn, if you know what I mean. But recently, this app has started to invest into more queer content because, I mean, in the Philippines, shows and movies that are streaming exclusive do not pass through censors. So that's the big loophole. So if you do not air on TV, or if you do not plan to screen it in the cinema, you don't get screened by the censor. So that gives them a leeway for these producers uh, to produce more daring content. Um, they started to dabble into LGBT-oriented erotic films because, I mean, there's no censorship and they own the app. So they have more control of content they want to produce and they want to screen. And oftentimes, it's cheaper to produce, no, because it often involves little-known actors rather than having a movie on the big screen where they need to hire a top actor or top actress. There, I think I skip a slide. Sorry about that. There. So let's move to the fourth part. Um, while Wattpad and the comic streaming sites have suffered unshittification, no, they're still soldier on in the local scene in some way or another. I think there's so much more good news to be found in the novel and the comic scene compared to the webcomic scene. It's though the sad part is that a lot of people who know Pinoy BL do not know that these novels and comics exist. Probably because we don't have like a cycle, for example, compared to Thai BL, no, where novels get adapted to a web series. No, we don't have that kind of cycle here. Um, so it would I would say it's a great that the queer artists are thriving in art fairs and BL conventions. No, so we have multiple art fairs like Comic Con, Comiket, and Patrons of the Arts, aka POTA. Sorry, locals, you know what POTA means. And we also have BL team conventions in Manila. No, we actually have two. There's Blush every June and Yaoi Expo every December. And what's great is that these conventions are not Manila centric anymore. So these events have started to expand in regional cities and towns. So there are more people who get the chance to display their work, more people who get a chance to buy these works. So there are more opportunities for these artists to be exposed and earn from their craft. Uh, Independent publishers as well has helped these artists to launch their own anthologies and books such as Alapaap. So this has attracted international attention there. And with the demise of PenLab, no, those that are digital centric have no choice but move to bigger international platforms like Webtoon and Tapas. So Webtoon and Tapas primarily emerge as the replacement for PenLab, which is I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing for a comic artist, no, especially if they are dealing with a sensitive work. Because if you are posting on a site that is controlled by someone else, like in Wattpad, right? So if there's a change in ownership or if there's pressure for the platform to make money, the artists who are posting on these sites will be vulnerable to changes in app or site rules. And also, I mean, let's face it, like Pinoy artists cannot compete on a fair game with Chinese, Japanese, or Korean creators. Because if we talk about Asian comics, East Asian comics, the typical depot will be either Chinese, Japanese, or Korean and not Pinoy. So for some people, for some artists, they got tired of all these hulabaloo. They don't post their comics online anymore. They just go straight to print. Because I mean, if sometimes they would feel that it's not worth it because the comics would just be pirated or they won't earn a lot from the comics being posted online. And also, to be frank, there's still a lack of local audience support. So as I mentioned in the past slides, no, Filipinos tend to patronize someone else's work rather than their own. So it does not help the authors because they would don't have a lot of support and revenue streams. Also, a lot of these comic artists are young people, no. Some of them are in college or still in high school, no. So of course, they need to deal with their studies first before their passions. So it's not unusual for these comics to go on hiatus or being stopped altogether. So it's because their personal lives are hindering their series development. There. And also, if we're gonna talk about the traditional publishers, no, the traditional publishers would still prioritize winners such as boy-girl romances. There was this really tragic case. So I know the author of this book. The author submitted his work and then eventually he passed away before the publisher contacted his estate, his family, saying that they want to publish their work, but they do not know that the author already passed away. It's really sad. Yeah, so the author never had a chance to witness their work being published. They never had the opportunity to have a book signing because they passed away before the book came out. Um, though in the publishing scene, no, there are still some that soldier on. Like I've noticed in the chat, someone mentioned Black Ink. So they're probably the only publisher lately that's still laser focused on queer content. So there was a recent reorganization at its parent publisher, no. So because their parent publisher primarily focuses on boy girl romances like everyone else, but they still want to invest in these content. So they reorganized the company and gave them queer imprint. So they're handling more work now, which is great. Like they release at least a dozen titles a year or something. Um, Also, a good like a new trend that has emerged lately is Filipino translation of international works. Um, we got Cherry Blossoms After Winter and Roses and Champagne translated into Tagalog last year. I think the author of Cherry Blossoms came to the Philippines and had book signings, which is really great there. And then I also want to highlight no, the rise of indie publishers and collectives. Because if these novelists and comic artists have no platform to share their works, no, why not just self-pub and do the work on their own? So self-publishing has become more popular, no. So it's not unusual for authors to do Kickstarter-ish runs. They would offer their works for sale. They would open pre-orders. And also, there are now writing communities such as Romance Class. They train authors just not just how to write, but how to distribute and market their work internationally. So I'll be sharing later one of their queer works. I'll also posted a link to that work in the discussion then. There. So in summary, no, of all the tea, I would describe the scenario of Pinoy BL in the last 5 years as what we call the roast chicken problem. I'm not sure if the locals in the group chat would know what I mean when I say roast chicken, no? So it's like a theory that states that most Filipino businesses are started to chase fads. And when you chase fads, no others follow. So much that when so many people are trying to do the same thing, the competition is unsustainable anymore. So that's how I describe Pinoy BL. So everyone was trying to chase Thai BL, no, because during the pandemic, it's the in thing, but most of them died out as the offered product was not compelling. Um, there's also some very weird and I would say very dumb moves, no? Like for example, there are certain web series that was moved to paid platforms. I think Game Boys was posted on Netflix, which is fine, but some of them were posted to very unknown platforms that are not accessible internationally. So if you're a BL fan back in the day and you're trying to access the second season of Benix Gym, for example, you have nowhere to watch it, maybe except to pirate it somewhere, no? Pirate in the high seas. So it means that these creators are losing money, losing international exposure, and then eventually the platforms they move to shut down as well. So these web series were in limbo for a while before the creators regretted their move, and then eventually they moved back the series to YouTube when the goodwill was already gone. Like the audience is already gone. The international audience who were clamoring for Pinoy BL already went somewhere else. There. Um, Another factor I think no that makes Pinoy BL pretty difficult to market is it does not match the ideals of the typical Western audience. Probably not the people here on the chat, no, or the people who are in CitrusCon, but the typical viewer who's watching these series in the search of having something cozy. Pinoy BL, as I mentioned, no, tends to be very activist. unlike other kinds of BL, where it tends to be more fantasy or more cozy, right? Most of these stories are written and produced towards local audiences, no? Ironically, even if the locals don't watch them. There's also the problem of shoestring budgets because these shows lack media machinery. They don't have government support. And also, one interesting feedback that I got during my research is that some watchers of Pinoy BL hate Taglish. So, if you hear a typical Tagalog person in Manila, how they speak their local language, you would be surprised because it's like 50% Tagalog and 50% English with a sprinkling of Chinese, Spanish, and all of that. So some Western audiences were apparently turned off by that week because they were expecting something like, how would I describe it? Something more graceful or more royal, like how Thai or Japanese people speak. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird comment, right? I was also shocked when I read that criticism during my research. There. And also, I mean, no offense to Pinoy GL, no. I mean, I also watch these from time to time. But let's admit that GL is also a competition. During the last 2 years, Pinoy GL has boomed. Um, we got featured prominent actresses who got into these big movies and TV series. And I would argue that they have a bigger market because it's not just queer people who are watching them, but also quote unquote straight men there. So here's a quick little chart, no? 2024 is the year of Pinoy GL because during that time, the number of Pinoy GLs produced were more than the number of Pinoy BLs produced. And that trend is still continuing today. Um, there are more Pinoy GLs being produced these days, which is actually great. Like, Sapik people deserve their love too, right? But from a business perspective, we still need to admit that GL competes in the same addressable market as Pinoy BL and other queer romances. There. So we're down to the last two parts, no? So for this one, I'm going to highlight some new trends and new partnerships that emerge during the last 5 years. For one, you can now read Pinoy BL novels in English, no? So someone was linking the website of Romance Class in the chat. Thank you. So you may want to purchase a digital copy of the book here on the right. Kiss Away by the Goodbye by H. Bentang. So now, I think the publishing community and the reading community has modernized. No, it has catch up with the trends in the West. So EPUB is becoming a more popular release format. So you can now buy EPUBs or at least ebooks, no, from Amazon. So it's not unusual to see Pinoys publishing books on Amazon these days. I was shocked that a lot of Pinoy readers actually own Kindles. Like I thought Kindle is like a luxury in the Philippines, but more and more people now have Kindles. However, compared to the vast majority of titles in Tagalog, no, there's still not a lot. Like it's just a small fraction of titles that are available internationally. So there's still a lot of books that are still in Tagalog and not being translated in English. So I call it the paradox of English proficiency. Like Filipinos are have good English skills, but they are not willing to translate their works in English for some reason. There. Also, the government has started to fund internationalization programs now. So this is one good news. There's a translation subsidy program that's being offered. So let's say a foreigner or maybe a fan translator would approach the Philippine government. Oh, I want to translate these Pinoy BL novels, so they can get a few $1,000. One product of that program no are these novels. They are published by a Singaporean publisher called Trendlit Publishing. Sadly, I think they're not available in the Philippines. I'm not sure though if you guys in the like if those in the United States in other countries can order it from Trendlit, but the publisher is Singaporean, so the website is in Singaporean dollars. There. We also have unusual sponsors, no? Like there's a supermarket chain called Pure Gold, so one of the largest in the country. They are a regular patron in the entertainment industry, so they sponsor a lot of TV shows, and then eventually they started producing their own content. So one of them is the show called My Plantito, which is utilizing a vertical TikTok format. It's kind of funny though, because I mean, if you're a local, you would know that it's a form of pinkwashing because the supermarket chain is really known for their abusive labor practices. So they're pretty much wasting thousands, if not millions of dollars to pinkwash their image instead of just paying their staff or regularizing their staff. There. We also have non-fiction formats, no. So there's a show called Spark Scam. So this is a dating show. It's available on YouTube. So I posted it as well on the discussion then. We also have international producers like Gaga Ulala and Blood sponsoring shows before, but I'm not sure lately if they're still sponsoring them. I doubt with Gaga Ulala. I don't think they're sponsoring Pinoy BL anymore. Um, we also have here creative events, no? So cup sleeve parties are now a thing. So the book publishers are starting to become more creative with their marketing strategies. No, there's also some that are doing book talk collaborations, and artists are being commissioned for book covers. And there was some events that they invite theater or voice actors to read excerpts of the books. It was really fun. Probably I would share a snippet in the discussion then later after the talk. There. And then finally, no, one big win is the emergence of Pinoy BL audiobooks. Sadly, none of them are available in English yet, but at least publishers are starting to experiment producing audiobooks. So some of them are being posted on Spotify, others are being posted on YouTube, no, which is actually a great thing because the Philippines doesn't have a local audiobook market, though, so to speak, because the industry typically caters more into dubbing movies or anime than producing audiobooks. There. So we only have a few minutes left, no? So I would just proceed in my last few slides, just trying to answer the question if there's a future for Pinoy BL. So of course, no, I would agree that there's a future for Pinoy BLs, but we have to accept a few realities. One is that it will never be like Thai BL because the nature of Philippine society and culture makes its media out of place with the rest of Asia. As I mentioned, no, creators are focused on advocacy than merely making money. The topics being discussed is not something that the typical audience would expect in Thai or Danme or something like that. And also, local audiences would rather consume foreign content than their own. Um, there's also the sad reality that Pinoy BL is not immune to Western culture wars. No, so as I've mentioned in the first part of the slides, that some people do not want to associate themselves with the term BL because they would avoid being associated with quote unquote fetishization. And the way fandoms are structured, no, they are still in their own silos, such that unless you are an ardent fan, you're very deep into fandom, you wouldn't know that there's such a thing as a Pinoy BL novel, a Pinoy BL comic, or a Pinoy BL web series, etc. So the fandoms are still not collaborating. So there. So the last question would be that do Pinoys actually want it? So it here could be many things. It could be popularity. It could be attention, etc. I mean, it's up to the individual creator to answer that. But in summary, no, Filipinos should not wait for a white savior for their media and culture to thrive. So that's a missing link, I think. No, Filipinos should be the primary champions on their own media, because if Pinoys would talk online that they love these books, that they are patronizing these books, others would follow, and they would get attention from other countries as well. Pinoy should not be content in being silent on the side. So they should be active cheerleaders, making their presence felt, actively supporting, going to events, buying these books, and supporting these authors. So we should be the ones patronizing our fellow Filipinos, not expecting other nationalities to patronize it. Right? It should start from at home. Yeah. There. So that ends my slide. We still have around 9 to 10 minutes to spare, no? So thank you very much everyone for attending. I posted here my socials, and as I mentioned, there we have a room in the discussion then, just in case if you want to hang out or talk more about the panel, no? I'll be opening the remaining minutes for questions, so please post it on the chat so that we can take a look. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so sad my Discord died on me and I missed so much. No worries, Shan. This panel is recorded, and actually, I was about to mention that it will be rebroadcasted due to popular demand. Someone confronted me in the lobby and told me, "Look, why did you schedule your panel at 5 in the freaking morning?" So, so I'm really, really sorry. But yeah, I there was some panels that were canceled, no. So I tried to talk to the volunteers and ask if I can get a rebroadcast slot. So yeah, I'll be posting the actual schedule. I think that should be 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's 9:30 p.m. in Manila. But no worries, even if you wouldn't be able to attend later, the panel is recorded and it will be posted on YouTube later after the con. There. I already bookmarked a bunch of the discussion links. Thank you for your patronage. Yes, Crossco, I know. I mean, I'd be honest, the first time I presented this panel in 2021, my host aide was trying to kick me out of the room. Like they were calling me out and said, "Hey, your time is up. You need to wrap up, yada yada." And they do it in voice, not in the chat. They woke up early for this. Thank you. This panel was so interesting. Thank you. What is your personal experience? I'm less of a fan and more of a writer, no. I mean, I'm already working on my fourth novel, but I would say that I'm not part of the popular ones. so I so I'm not really even sure why I am the one representing the country in an international convention when there are more popular ones. But those people would probably not even know that CitrusCon exists. So someone just have to step up. Thank you. I learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I will be posting the stories in the discussion then later. Keep writing. Thank you so much for the panel. Works for South AM, thankfully. Ha ha ha. I'm also going to post a copy of the slides, by the way, but I'm going to limit it just like the visibility only until the end of the con, just to give everyone a chance to view it, just in case they prefer navigating through a slide. Any advice for an art student going to the Philippines? I think you might want to consider a regional city instead of Manila. Dumaguete, which is around like like a 500 kilometers or miles away is really known for their art scene. You may also want to consider, for example, Baguio. It's a there's a really cool art community in Baguio. Yeah, though if you're gonna ask if it's worth it, like to study and make a career in art in the Philippines, I don't know. Yeah, I I would be honest and would tell you that it's not worth it. Yeah. Drag Race Philippines has reached great local and international success. A brand new audience will tune in. But queer media interlaps with many ways. I feel there's an opportunity there somehow. Yeah, I'm really happy with the success of Drag Race, even though personally I have not watched it, because I mean it gives international audiences an exposure to how the scene looks like, what life looks like in the Philippines. So even if it's a reality show and not a romance, it still works great. Maraming salamat po. Salamat din po sa nakapag-breakfast na po kayo. I do want to read your stuff. I think as a Latino, Pinoy BL hits so much closer to home than Western BL in general. Oh, that's a nice feedback. Thank you, Sean. Representation is representation no matter the popularity. Yeah, I would agree 100%. Keeping it real. Yeah, last few minutes for your questions, guys. Also, what best way about different cultures than to be? Yeah, you're right. Like, probably one thing that I really like about Japanese BL, for example, is how they depict their characters in a range of industries. Because I mean, as I mentioned, no, in the Philippines, queer people tend to be portrayed in a stereotypical manner. But in Japanese BL, you get to see them working in offices. There was a BL that I've read where the main character is working as a train driver. So I was really impressed. Type so pass. No worries, cross grow. I get you. I get you. Oops, I think I clicked something. Uh-huh. Wait, hold on. I think I lost the chat. Type 2 pass. Last minute great decision. Yeah. So actually I almost forgot, but the last minute decision was actually the announcement of the Singaporean licenses. So when I saw it on Blue Sky, I was so shocked that finally an international publisher would be picking up those titles. So I thought, okay, hold on, I need to submit a panel at CitrusCon real quick. I need to talk about this. Yay! Already bookmark. What a roller coaster. Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys, especially for those expecting that it will be a pure introductory plan. But I hope you had fun and learned a lot with all the tea that I've shared. I feel like I've noticed as Filipinos, we tolerate us queer folks but not accept, using us for entertainment but not fully accepting it. What do you think about it? Ah, I think that would apply to older generations, no? But when we talk about, let's say, millennials to Gen Z or Gen Alpha, especially for those who are part of political movements like the Kakampink movements, no, if you know what I mean, they already grew up in a post martial law democratic environment. They already got exposed to the internet and to Western culture, so they tend to be more accepting and their outlook is already more liberal. But it's I mean there's still pockets of people or pockets of communities that would still apply even for their young people. This would still apply. But for the most part, audiences who are living in urban environments or those that have a good, like a college education, for example, they tend to be pretty liberal about it already. This was a great intro. Someone has never heard about Pinoy BL. Thank you very much. This was a great start. Thank you for this great experience. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. It's 6 a.m. on my end. As I promised, I'll be sharing more links in the discussion then, and then I'll just going to finalize the rebroadcast schedule, and then I'm going to make an announcement in the lobby. Okay. Thank you.